Q.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is a really important conversation at this point. We've started a series, for those of you who joined us last week in our conversation with Julio Ribeiro. This is a series called the Police Dialogues. The idea behind this series is to speak to those who understand the problems better than anyone else and to figure out what the problems are with policing in India. And we have a lot of problems. Apart from the fact that there is severe political interference with the workings of the police, with the investigations, with the appointments, the transfers, and the promotions in the police, there's also ineffectiveness, a lack of infrastructure, maybe some biases as well. And among all of the other things that we look at, we've also discovered a severe lack of human resource management within the policing system. The police staff are overworked, underpaid, and often very unhealthy. As a reference, of course, you could go to our main video that we put up on our channel about access to the Mumbai police and why so many of them were lost to COVID because of their health conditions and their working conditions. But in our continued conversation on police dialogues, today I have some very, very respected voices to talk to. And this is why we're doing this. And I know that the entire country right now is obsessed with one particular case. You might believe that it's a good thing. You might believe that it's a bad thing. That's what's happening. But you do believe at some point that some part of the police is being interfered by political parties. They're taking orders from their political higher-ups. And that might not be the best way to run the policing system. Today, we're going to talk about policing as a job and why it is so ill-designed, whether it's in infrastructure, staffing, or anything else. And to help us answer those questions, I have three very esteemed people joining us right now. The first of my panelists is Mr. Ramchandran. He's the president of the Indian Police Foundation, but also Mr. Ramchandran is a former DGP Assam Meghalaya cadre. And he's a highly decorated and he's an accomplished IPS officer. He served Assam and Meghalaya. He also, in the central government, served the elite special protection group that provides protection to the prime ministers. And I understand he was instrumental in making the SPG the world-class unit that it is today. So we're very happy to have him with us. My next guest is Meera Borvankar. I've been an admirer of her for many, many years. She was Pune's first woman commissioner, the first woman IPS officer in the Maharashtra cadre, the first woman to head the Mumbai crime branch. And I remember when she was heading the Mumbai crime branch, I was a cub reporter and used to be afraid to go anywhere near her office. And after 36 years in the police service, she's now dedicated a lot of time to fixing the problems in the system. And she has some excellent stories to share with us. We have Dr. Vipul Mudgal joining us as well. He heads an organization called Common Cause. Common Cause is a Delhi-based civil society watchdog that focuses on promoting democracy, rule of law, good governance through legal interventions, research and policy engagement. Now, he's done a great deal of research on the matter of policing in India. And a recent report, which he was the author, called The Status of Policing in India 2019, actually sets the stage for the conversation we're having. And I just want to go through some of the data points in Dr. Mudgal's report. He says, all across the country, the police functions at 77% of its sanctioned strength. And this is the average number of positions that are vacant. Only 6.4% of those serving have received in-service training. He's talked about infrastructure and how there is many police stations, there are only like 6 computers and sometimes not even that. And how the representation of the SC, ST, OBC and women is very poor within the policing system. And how, and this is the interesting part, 60% of those who answered the questionnaire for this research within the police said that they work more than 12 hours a day. So this is where actually we're starting from. The whole question of how we improve the policing, what we do and what is going wrong. And there are various things that we need to look at. Of course, there is the policy interventions and where that is going wrong. There's the HR sort of conditions under which these policemen work and women work. And finally, there's the personal conditions under which they're working. So if I may please bring in my panelists at this point. Good evening to all three of you and thank you for being so generous with your time. I will start, if I may, with Mr. N. Ramchandran. If we talk about first point that I raised from Dr. Mudgal's report about vacancies, 77% of sanctioned strength is what the police is functioning at across the country as of 2019. And that's my first question from a policy point of view, because as reporters, as journalists, we report about how every time there are vacancies opened, thousands and lakhs of people land up from across the state to enter and to participate. But somehow we still haven't filled up all of the vacancies. What do you think the problem is with vacancies? And why is it that our police is being forced to function on low strength?
So, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Faye, for this opportunity. And first of all, I must also thank this Mumbai-based unique group that has come together to support the police, committing their resources, their financial resources, and their intellectual resources, their time to this great cause. And I'm very thankful to this, to you as well as the group. Now, before we start, I just want to make a small rider. That is, there is this imputation that that policing is a thankless job. I want to just mention here that policing. I do not subscribe to a view that policing is a thankless job. In fact, I consider policing to be an immensely satisfying and fulfilling career. In fact, every day of my career, I enjoyed being a policeman and I wore my uniform with pride. And that is how most of the police officers who serve in this country feel. So we have our difficult moments almost on a daily basis, but that doesn't make policing a thankless career. Coming back to the question that you asked, in fact, out of about 25.9 lakh sanctioned strength, out of that about 10 or nearly 11 lakh is with what are called the Central Armed Police Forces.
Mr. Ramchandran, forgive me, I'm just going to stop you for a second because there seems to be a problem with your audio. We aren't able to understand you very well. I will take the same question to Ms. Borwankar, and then we'll come back to you when we've had a chance to fix your audio, and our producers will get on top of that. I apologize to the viewers. Ms. Borwankar, good evening, and thank you for joining us. Same question to you about vacancies and why it is that we're not able to function on full strength.
So, Faye, I agree with Mr. Ramachandran that policing is not a meaningless job. It's a very challenging job. But the issue of vacancies, up to about 25% is the normal in police in all the states in the country, and it's really unfortunate. Government, I feel, in this is being penny wise and pound foolish. When police person is the first to respond to the distress of citizens, instead of investing in their recruitment and training, we are being stingy. And not one state, across the country, this is the issue, and which it's good that you're highlighting. In the different reports prepared by the police departments all over the country, we have highlighted it. It's better that citizens know that when they curse us, and they curse us quite often, they are aware that each police person is carrying the load of another police person, because not only are there vacancies, he or she is working 14 hours a day, 365.
And so this is because of a lack of money. Are we saying that our state governments here do not have the resources to be able to hire everybody so that people have decent working conditions? Ms. Borwankar?
Yes, police leadership would like 100% vacancies to be filled, but the state governments are not spending enough either on recruitment or on the training. Training budget, by the way, is about 1% of the police budget.
Let me bring in Dr. Vipul here. So here's the question. So why hasn't this been brought up earlier? Why isn't there more demand on state governments to do a better job on funding for the police?
No, it has been brought face several times. In fact, if you see the CAG reports, there are 10 years continuously. I mean, can there be anything more egregious than this? 10 years, year after year after year, when the CAG of India, as a kind of important an organization as CAG, is bringing out audit reports in which it is saying that 71% of underutilization of budget in Bihar, more than 40%, sometimes 50% underutilization in UP, 32% in Assam. Maharashtra in certain components, say something like equipment component, 88% underutilization of funds. In some states, there are 99% of the lower ranks who do not have proper housing. So obviously, I mean, if you are, looking at why it happens, I would probably not be able to give you a very satisfactory answer, but I can tell you that we have known this all along. Between 2012 and 2017, there were 22% vacancies, and BPRND flagged this, and other agencies flagged it, but nothing happened. Now we see in 2019, it has gone down by merely about 3% or 4%, but the devil is in the details. When you see the vacancies, which are the vacancies which are not being filled, you will actually see that it's the vacancies of women, it's the vacancies at the lowest level, and it's the vacancies of reserved categories of SC, ST, OBCs. Forget the minorities. The government has stopped sharing the data of what is the dismal state of minorities in the police force. You see, this actually affects the diversity of the police. The police should be a reflection of the society. It should look like what the Indian society looks like. If all the policemen, they look like in Haryana, they look taller, like 6.5 feet. All of them look very different from me. Then people of, this area, Gurgaon, they think that, police probably come from some other panel, some other planet, So it's like that. So they should be like us, and they should reflect the diversity of Indian society. And that, I think, the lack of vacancies is actually, messing up that area.
Well, actually, we have a couple of questions popping up. Tisha Das says, how can we make this profession respectable again? And that question worries me, because there is a suggestion that the profession is not respectable right now. And, I have to keep reminding our viewers that we're talking about, and when we compare this profession to any other profession in service, where somebody else popped up saying, Anna in India says policing comes under the service sector. Why does it require thankfulness? Consider other service sectors as well. So there does seem to be a disconnect of appreciation for the work the police is doing. Ms. Borwalkar, do you want to, why do you think that's happening? Is there a lack of faith building among citizens for the police?
Faye, I would like to respond.
Please.
Yeah, I don't think, I totally disagree that we have to bring respect back to police. I was in Indian Audits and Account Service. I left that to join police. So it's not that it's only the men who are getting attracted by not only the power, but the service component of our uniform. I think it's a highly respectable profession. It attracts this batch of Indian police service officers who passed out, whom the Prime Minister recently addressed, had maximum number of engineers. So it's a highly respected profession. It's terribly overworked. It deals with emergencies and all the bad facets of human nature. But I completely disagree that you have to bring respect back to police. Oh, no, not at all. It's a highly respected profession.
There's another question which actually leads into the next thing I was going to ask you about. And this is from Sheldon Pereira, who says, in Mumbai, and guys, we should be talking about police all over the country, but if you're asking about Mumbai, it says the police stations in Worli and Fort are from the British times. In the last 70 years, how much have they actually been updated? Are they really, and this is the question I was going to ask in terms of infrastructure, Dr. Vibhu, asking from your question, do we have enough computers? Do we have the latest technology that we see on television the NYPD is using? Do we have access to that kind of infrastructure? I've heard stories about, women constables who don't have proper place to change in and out of their uniforms in some police stations. They don't have proper toilets. When they're out on beat, which toilets do they use? So things like that. Do we have enough of that? Is there enough focus really to improve the quality of life of our policemen? Dr. Mughal, to you first, as to what you found in your research paper.
No, actually, whatever research very clearly says that there are 20% of people. You see, there is a system of checking the boxes. You ask how is the data collected? Data comes to BPRND or data comes to different organizations. They ask the states, and the states ask the districts, and they just tick mark. They say, toilet hai? Haan, hai na toilet. So my wife went to a police station in Gurgaon with the maid. There was some problem going on. They had to wait for an enormously long period of time. They didn't mind that, but somebody had to use the toilet, and the toilet doors would not close. So now this is a woman's toilet. So is there a toilet or is there not? The toilet is there, but the door doesn't work. So it's like that. So you have extremely pathetic. I have this feeling, Faye, that some people want to keep the police backward. There is a lack of political will there. And when I mentioned the CAG reports, why should there be such a severe underutilization of funds? We know the story in India. Go to any department, from floods department to kind of agriculture department. Everybody says that we are a poor country. There is lack of resources in our country. The fact is that you are being given money. The police modernization budgets, year after year after year, are being returned to the center. I mean, there could be some systemic problems, money coming late, etc., etc. But the other thing that you said about the New York police or police in the US and in the West, we have actually, there's a new danger that we are seeing from there. We do not want our resources to be used for militarizing the police. We don't want armored vehicles. We don't want 20 different types of weapons to threaten our public. We want training of sensitivity. We want accountable police, not just efficient police, but efficient and accountable police. And I have this feeling that the states are intentionally keeping the police backward and not spending the money. Otherwise there is no other reason.
It's actually so and I can see that Mr. N. Ramachandran is with us again. Sir, the question of the lack of political will to improve conditions of policing. Okay, we still do. If we have you, Dr. Mughal said that there is a lack of political will to improve conditions of infrastructure, of vacancy, of funding, and of training. Do you agree?
So I would say that are you able to hear me now?
It is a little better.
Can you hear me?
We may do. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I would say that the political leadership as well as the bureaucratic leadership has immense power over the police by controlling the budget. Because police budgets are very interesting study by themselves. In fact, most of the states, except for a few honorable exceptions, most states do not have sufficient money for any other activity other than paying salaries. Once the DGP pays salaries to the staff, then very little money is left for any other kind of activity. Therefore, controlling the police, one of the tools for control is through police budgets. That is one thing. And even things like training, for example, it is only one or two states like Delhi that has a substantial training budget, but most of the states have an average of about 1% of the overall budget for training. But Very large states in North India, many of them have much less than 1% of the total budget for police training. So you can imagine the relative kind of importance or lack of importance that is being given to policing.
But Mr. Ramchandran, is it a deliberate attempt to keep the police, for want of a better word, backward, submissive?
Some of the states are already broke and they don't have money, and policing is one of the least of their priorities, because that is one area which, I mean, the policemen will not in any case protest actively. So policing does not receive the kind of importance or priority from many of the states. Coming back to the earlier question of human resources, I just wanted to say one thing, that recruiting large numbers of people in one go has also a problem about the quality of training. They are not able to pay adequate attention to training, because if you suddenly recruit 1 lakh people, it is very difficult to provide quality as far as training is concerned. That is one thing. But at the same time, having said this, I have a feeling that this is one of the low-hanging fruits, and we can take this as an opportunity to clear the, to fill in these vacancies, especially vacancies of women, for example. As of now, only 8.9% of the total police, manpower, is represented by women, or women represent 8.9%. So this is a very small percent, and I have a feeling that when we have such a large vacancy, this is one of the big areas where governments can, start making a difference by going in for an aggressive recruitment as far as possible, of course, keeping in mind the training capacity. But over the next few years, this issue can be resolved. And as long as we don't fill in these vacancies, almost 4 lakh plus vacancies in civil police today is a huge number. And so this is something that needs to be addressed urgently.
Also, we've seen that there is a angle here that is in Mr. Budgal's report, that obviously while there are fewer women being hired, specifically women from SC, ST, OBC and minorities are even fewer in being hired. And so there is, of course, a problem there with representation as well. But I want to now talk about working conditions. Like we had reported for Mumbai, that the working conditions, and someone asked this question, unfortunately I lost that question before I could read it out. Why do so many policemen have a pot belly, is the question. Now here's the thing we discovered in Mumbai. Now when policemen, especially on the constable level, are hired, they're given a physical training test. And they're invariably hired 200 to 1. So there are about 200 or 250 young people who compete for one position. So actually you've picked the fittest out of 200 people. And that person, by the time he or she hits 50, has a pot belly, has diabetes, has high blood pressure, invariably may have anxiety and stress-related mental health conditions as well. It's because of their working conditions. So the next time you see a policeman with a pot belly, remember it's not because he's lazy, but because he's being overworked and he's not given enough time to look after himself. And that brings me to the next point of working conditions in human resource management. Ms. Boralkar, do you agree that there are bad working conditions that have led to the kind of health problems we're seeing in our police? And what impact does that have on the quality of the work?
Yeah, absolutely, Faye. In fact, you missed, along with everything, all the ailments, dark circles under the eyes. And let me tell you, a young constable who, say, worked with me in Satara district 20 years ago, 20 years later, you will not even be able to recognize him because of constant underwork, standing on duty, in sun, in rain, and not eating properly. See, nutrition of policemen and women is really bad. Because of the irregular, erratic timings, they end up eating vada pav as lunch at 4 o'clock, or they may leave their houses having a very early breakfast with huge gaps, and therefore all these issues related to health and we losing them during COVID. Working conditions are so bad that about 37% have reported they would like to change the jobs, and about 80% of our constabulary feels that because of these irregular, erratic, and 14 hours working, they are under tremendous mental and physical stress. So next time you see a pot belly constable, please do not laugh at him, empathize with him. And in fact, through programs like this, we have to reach up to the citizens to tell them what are our difficulties. And we need the support of citizens. If we have huge number of vacancies, if our working conditions are bad, if our pay packets are still low, citizens better know. And as to your earlier observation, politicians want to exploit police. I don't think they want to keep us underdeveloped, to have not update our technology. In that, I feel it's the failure of bureaucracy. And Vipul sir, next time when you conduct such a survey, please find out which month were the funds released to police for utilization. I was also heading the prison department. Same, I felt in the prison, the funds are released to us in January and we have to utilize them, give all documentation by 31st March. So lack of, for our failure to utilize funds is a bureaucratic failure.
So actually, if I understand carefully, if I understand correctly, Ms. Borokar, you're saying that there is money that is released, but it is the police administration. There's an admin department that is run by the IPS for every city. It is that admin department that's failing, is what you're saying?
I am saying the home departments, police leadership identifies, even in the prison, we would identify what we have to buy, what is the need. But then to get the same sanctioned and the whole procedure in the home departments of all the states, that's pretty slow. Even sometimes when home secretaries are with us, they want to help us out. The release of funds by center is never before December end. So late release of funds and lots of bureaucracy in the state home departments. Of course, you get good officers also who, take us faster in the process and get us the equipment that we need.
Right. And this actually brings us to a really interesting point. And I just want to remind our viewers that, in Mumbai, at least, this is what I discovered when I was doing my research. Not only are they working 12, 13, 14 hours, they're also traveling 3 hours to go home because the pay is so low and not everybody gets police housing because there isn't enough police housing. So they wind up living 3 hours away in Thane or in a city that's even further. They're traveling. And on top of where they are, they're taking another 3 hours to get home. And before they get home, it's time to turn around and come back to work. Invariably, we've also heard that after a policeman has finished his duty, if someone comes in to file a complaint or if there is a call that is made, he will have to extend and stay on because the next person might not be there. So there are these conditions as well. So we have to start looking at police people as human beings if you're going to have to solve this problem. I think that there is a marked problem in the comments that I'm reading as well, where people saying that, they don't pay for auto rides and they take whatever they want and they take hafta. That brings me to the next question then to Mr. Ramchandran, if I may ask you this before we lose your audio again. The question of corruption, of hafta, of taking money, taking favors, it brings me to the question of remuneration. On an average, what is the salary of a police constable in any part of the country?
So I have a feeling that police persons are, not that they are very well paid, but considering our Indian conditions and comparing with other departments, there is a reasonable salary, but these salary scales differ from state to state. And even if the salaries are very low, I don't see any reason why that should be connected with corruption. Corruption is a disease that has totally different, you know, different reasons. And I have a feeling, of course, policemen's living conditions as well as matters like their salaries should be attended to, but that is no excuse for corruption. Corruption is a rampant phenomenon as far as police is concerned. Uh, Coming back to your first point about health, I just wanted to mention that Bombay Police had recently carried out a study in which they have found that the high rates of mortalities within police during these COVID infections is partly because of very high levels of comorbidities found in policemen. Not only in Mumbai, it is true of all the states. As of today, for your information, 503 police personnel have died across the country until today, and about 85,000 plus people have been infected. Of course, that is partly because it is very difficult for policemen to exercise social distancing, etc. They have to actually grapple with people. But at the same time, this high rates of mortality is a matter of concern. That is partly because of the study itself. It says that there are so many comorbidities like blood pressure, high, like the heart disease, and diabetes, high, very uncontrolled diabetes. These are very common, in the police.
But Mr. Mutkal, do you agree that it has nothing, that remuneration has nothing to do with the corruption factor, that if they were paid better, they'd live better lives and would be less tempted? Or do you think that, like Mr. Ramchandran says, that they should be honest no matter what? Yes.
You're asking me?
Dr. Mutkal.
Okay, I think these two things could be mildly connected, but listen, if my roof is leaky, it does not mean that I'll catch a wrong person. Like what is going on in Delhi, there are a lot of people who are the real rebel rousers who are inciting riots are just sitting pretty, and there are many others who were participating in peaceful protests are being booked. So this has nothing to do with anybody's working conditions. This is happening because they are working for the rulers of the day, and they are not working for the Constitution of India, and their working is such that the politicians can make or break their careers. So I think that is where we need to insulate their working conditions from the rulers. We are not saying that the chief minister will not have a say or the home minister will. No, sir, you will have a say. But when you do something, when say transfer, posting, promotions, there should be a broad-based committee. The leader of the opposition should be there in that. Judges can be there in that. Yes, you can game the system, but at the same time, if it is only one set of politicians, then I think there is a problem. So we see, Faye, that there are many other pressures on the police who actually make their working very, very difficult. The unfair pressures on them. Like while doing investigation, we found in our report that almost 65% officers said that while doing investigation, there is unfair pressure, either from the department or from politicians. So if you can't do your work properly, if you are constantly kind of heckled, then I think there is a problem there. And let me just say one more thing, that the report you mentioned, I mean, it's not Dr. Mudgal's report, it's like Common Cause, CSDS, many other organizations, and we've had people guiding us. Many very senior IPS officers have been guiding us, and we have been using some of the numbers from the government agencies. And there is another report, the Indian Justice Report, which is also a collaboration between many organizations, and they are very contiguous, very similar findings.
Right, so that actually brings me to the question on promotions. And again, I see that, Sir's audio has been going in and out. So this question comes again to Ms. Borhankar. The question of promotions and transfers. and we read this a lot. Whenever there is a problem, you'll see these 4 policemen have been transferred, and moved out. Do you believe that there should be a disconnect, or there should be some sort of moderation between the political influence of, between the political influence on transfers and promotions?
Absolutely. If you want professional policing, and that's what the citizens want, but citizens these days have no voice, or they're too busy watching some programs which are being thrown to them again and again. If you want professional policing, let police leadership have a free hand and hold them accountable. Like Supreme Court in Prakash Singh Sir's PIL has very clearly said that for all the promotions and transfers, first there should be fixed tenure of 2 years or 3 years, and then these promotions and transfers should be by independent boards. These boards not only should have senior police officers, or maybe in case of like in case of CBI chief, you have the Supreme Court judge, the leader of opposition. So independent bodies which do not get swayed by the political party in power. And why no political party is ready to accept this, to give autonomy to police, because each political party wants to use us. And therefore, while they are using us, citizens are suffering. They don't. As to your question about corruption, I agree with Ramachandran sir that I don't think salary or perks has anything to do with corruption. IPS officers get good salary, and yet some of us have also compromised. It's the culture that our country has today. And to wean people away from corrupt practices, or to win over the fence sitters towards honest governance, I feel we should give teeth to our anti-corruption bureaus, our vigilance heads. You know, Maharashtra Anti-Corruption Bureau was headless without any chief for long. So give autonomy to anti-corruption bureaus, induct good officers, increase their manpower, so that those who are not able to come out openly for honesty because they see others making money, they at least we can deter them from joining the band, and also build ethics, service orientation, or recruit people. While recruiting them, not only test their physical fitness and their mental ability, but also their attitude towards service, their integrity. In UPSC, they have introduced this now, and we must have at the state recruitment level of police also integrity, ethics tested, service orientation tested, so that we recruit the right people and not physically fit, intelligent people only.
So I do want to ask you this, if Mr. Ramachandran can hear me, the idea that there are police officers who align themselves to one or the other political party. And I've recently come across this. I know that this, we talked about this a lot when there was a mild word would be tussle in the CBI at the very top last year, but there were 2 very senior CBI, the head and the number 2 were fighting, and there was this whole argument of how each one is aligned to a different political party. We've heard that happen in various states. As soon as the political party changes and a new government comes into power, there is a different list of police officers that are promoted and given positions. How rampant is this? And is this one of the major causes of problems that we're seeing within the police?
It is very rampant, and it's a sad state of affairs that very large numbers of police officers do align with political parties or certain political leaders. They identify themselves with certain political leaders, etc. And this is a very shameful state of affairs, and that has also made them vulnerable to various kinds of allegations that they have been, even if they have sort of even if they have been able to, let's say, do a thorough job in an investigation, for example. But there are situations because of their known affiliation with certain political parties, etc. People can very justifiably point fingers at them. So this is a major bane of our service, not only at the IPS level, but even at lower levels. There are a substantial number of police officers who align themselves with political parties, and this shows in the shape of bias during their, not only in investigation and prosecution of crime, but also while dealing with communal riots or various other kinds of, public order situations. So
what is the solution to that, sir?
I also wanted to mention something about the recruitment part of it. You see, until recently, there was rampant corruption in recruitment itself. But slowly, there is a tendency, many police officers, senior officers have taken the initiative for what is called transparent recruitment process. And many states have adopted transparent recruitment process. But many states have not adopted such transparency in recruitment. And if there is corruption, if I have to pay to become a police officer, as a constable or a sub-inspector, then I will have to retrieve that money when I become a police officer. So this has been a major, bane, corruption in recruitment itself. But thankfully, there is substantial, work being done by police officers across the country in, dealing with this menace. And because they have been able to make use of technology to bring about a certain amount of transparency in recruitment, and that use of technology, by use of technology, it has been possible to eliminate corruption to a substantial level.
Can I just add something to that?
Yes.
In the corruption, there is another thing. The police are seen as more corrupt because they are seen most of the time on the road, and we have something to do with, they take it's small change. Believe me, the big corruption is somewhere else. Big corruption is in mining. It's in giving out contracts. It's in like bulk transfers and promotions of other services which nobody is talking about. The police. It's a very delicate thing. Policing is it's very easy to kind of become very repressive in the name of good policing, or become a failed state if you are not maintaining law and order. So there has to be a balance in between, and there we see that if there is, generally there is transparency and accountability in governance, the water level goes up. And when water level goes up, everything which is floating also goes up. So if there is transparency in governance in other departments, probably the police will also be a little more, a little less corrupt. So my thing is that the police should be accountable to the people, and that itself will reduce corruption.
And I want to intervene. I feel citizens should take more interest in police. The community, we should own police. As of today, it's the politician who is taking control of police, owning the police. And lack of interest by citizens is the main cause for all these issues.
In fact, let me ask that question of our audience right now. Tell me why you are not more interested in the police. So do you know who the inspector is in your local police station? Who the SHO is? Do you know who your police commissioner is in your city? Do you know when there is a transfer that has happened? Do you understand the conditions under which your police work? Why are we not interested in this information? We are very interested in like movie stars and, Riya Chakrabarti and everything else that is being talked about right now. But actually, who is in charge of my local police station is a piece of information that can affect my life, as opposed to everything else that TV channels are talking about. So why aren't we showing more interest in our police? Anyone who wants to give us an answer, and we'll take that answer. But
Faye, can I give a small example?
Please, please.
So
please.
one night I got a call from two young girls. They had asked for police help from the police control room in Pune because 2-3 boys were harassing them. And the control room officer, instead of helping them or sending help, asked them to check what was the time, why they were out so late, why they must come out alone, why there was no male persons with them. These girls approached me. We took out the control room audio, found that their complaint was correct, and those guys were shifted, and we saw to it that the control room is manned by men who are sensitive, women who are sensitive to the citizens. Now, if these two girls had not approached me and had given up, this same constable would have given similar replies to many other citizens in distress. So citizens must approach us, pat us on the back when we are doing good, and criticize us when we are not on the right track. But please take interest. You cannot afford to remain neutral, apathetic, not take interest, and yet find faults.
But the inspector should also know what went wrong. Very often they think this is the right thing to do. We asked many people the question, but police officers, is it all right to punish people on your own rather than taking them to court? And a very large number of about 37% people said that, yeah, it's perfectly all right to beat up, to torture. Even in some cases, they started justifying fake police encounters. So I think the attitude is something which will go with long-term training, with sensitivity, with if there are, fortunately, if there are police commissioners like Meera ji who can actually teach them this by practice, probably yes. But I think there should be a systemic response through training.
Yes, sir, but पहले own तो कीजिए कि मेरी पुलिस है.
True. नहीं, मेरी पुलिस है.
Faye, you should take up this campaign. My police. Police belongs to me, I belong to this.
So there's one point that says, we keep saying citizens should do this, should do that. Who will make sure that all of this is happening? We've got some other people saying the policemen in my locality are very cooperative and very easily available. I have no idea how to access information about the police, about how to look at all of this information is another point. They are very friendly, spoke very well. Some did criticize them, but, so basically they're talking about Tisha Das says, I experienced the same. Caught 2 men clicking pictures. I snatched their phone and went to the police station. I was questioned as to why I was out, but then later they helped me. So I guess there are mixed feelings about policemen. And here's the thing, right? As ordinary citizens, especially in the middle class, we don't really come in contact with the police on a regular basis. Unlike other services, you don't meet them every day or once a week or even once a month. You only meet them when something is wrong and when you are already in a state of, unhappiness in some way. And one bad policeman could color your opinion to the entire force in that one incident because it was not handled carefully.
I have a small thing to share, some small story. So when I was handling Jalgaon sex scandals, which made headlines during 1990s, my officers told me, ma'am, you are going out of the way, reaching out to the girls, register their cases, register their FIRs, but we tell you that these girls will not support you in the court. And mind you, all my efforts, I felt, failed to a huge extent because half the girls really did not support us when it came to standing up in the court and admitting that this particular offense and this particular accused was involved in a rape. So police people feel that citizens remember us only in emergency and then they just forget us and they do not come to give evidence in court.
But victim not cooperating, Meera ji, victim not cooperating shows how pathetic is the state of affairs in the country. Because victim is the first person who wants justice. Witness not cooperating, one can still understand. which was in our study, we found about 70% cases, witnesses were not willing to cooperate. But a large number of cases when victims don't want to cooperate, I think there is a serious problem.
This was gender issue, of course.
Of course, yes.
Mr. Ramchandran, do you agree?
Because now I am audible. You know, one reality is that citizens are generally not aware. They don't have the awareness about the police, and especially what are the constraints under which the police functions. So that is a major issue, and that has led to a huge erosion in the public trust. And when there is a lack of trust, they don't share information with the police. And again, this becomes a kind of a vicious circle in which police try and use other kinds of methods to extract information. So there is a huge need for police to come together, police and the citizens to come together. And this Indian Police Foundation has been set up exactly with this in mind. That is to bring police and citizens together, because first of all, it is the time of multidisciplinarity. Policemen don't have all the answers for everything. It is high time that police starts looking for answers outside the police, four walls of the police, establishment itself. So that is why Police Foundation tries to bring people from all walks of life, citizens, from the industry, from the media, from, the academic world, and, other civil society activists, leaders, and general public. So we all should come together, because as far as police reform is concerned, it is such a complex and such a vast subject. It is not so easy for one person or one institution to bring about reform, because it is such a complex area mired in several layers of complexities. So it is high time that all the stakeholders, citizens, the government, of course, the central and the state governments, the bureaucracy, the police leadership, the entire police force for that matter, and the civil society, the citizens, they all should come together, work together, and that is the only way to take this forward. It is not possible, because as of now, you will find a very large number of excellent officers across this country who are doing great work. They are producing some result or some difference in some areas, some remote district. But the moment that officer gets transferred, his innovative practices, etc., also disappear. So very seldom do they get institutionalized. So Police Foundation looks at such, cases where it is possible to look at these innovative practices, these islands of excellence, see if we can try and, validate those so-called good practices and try to scale it up throughout the country.
Faye, I would like to give you one positive story also. There was a young engineering student, Jyotsna Bagur. She was murdered, that one-sided love affair. That boy murdered her friend, and with whom she was on a scooty when this incident happened. And the two boys who helped her took the injured persons to the hospital. They did give evidence in the court, and the accused has been given a life imprisonment. That they will stand against corruption, they will own police, and they will come forward to give evidence in court.
That is a good story. I'm going to end with the same question I always ask, which is, what should we do as citizens? Ms. Borvankar has already told us that we should show interest in policing. We should show interest in who's serving right now in the police station that's nearest to us. We should also show interest in promotions and the merit of those promotions, although I must accept that that information is not normally made public for ordinary citizens to find out. But I'm going to ask the question to everyone. Dr. Mughal, you first. What should citizens be doing? How can we fix this problem?
I think the citizens must immediately first understand that the police works for them. Police is supposed to work for the people and not for the rulers of the day. And the police have to work for the peace and harmony in the society. And for that, what Meeraji briefly mentioned, in Prakash Singh judgment, the 7 directives which are given by the Supreme Court of India is now law of the land. You have to have police complaints authority. You have to have police establishment board. You have to have police security commission. You have to have a separate investigation wing of the police. So all that will have to be implemented by the state. So unless we follow our own statutes, we are going to fall. I think that's among the most important things. And then we have to stop. Listen, this was a colonial police. We are still using many places 1861 law, although the law has changed. So it's like the British and the natives, like the ruling class and the rest of us. It has to become a people-centric service, and for that we have to bring in the systemic changes.
I'm going to use this opportunity. I'm going to misuse this opportunity, Mr. Ramchandran, to ask you a slightly different question. Today, we've heard also that Rhea Chakrabarti has been arrested by the Narcotics Bureau. And I'm going to read out to you some of the things that are being said on Twitter. And this is from a very senior journalist who has said, has been arrested, Rhea Chakrabarti arrested by the Narcotics Bureau. So what the CBI, the ED, the BR police could not do, the NCB has done. This is, I think, a very unfortunate day, because what it leaves me as a citizen with is a deep mistrust of all these agencies, which are effectively policing agencies and investigating agencies. I don't know who to trust. Is this sort of witch hunting? Is this sort of, political posturing something the police should be doing? And how do we as citizens free ourselves from this? Because whether you want to believe the Mumbai police is doing what the Maharashtra government is telling them, or the CBI, the ED, the NCB is doing what the government of India is telling them, effectively we are saying that they are all political pawns. And that is deeply distressing as a citizen. What should we do to fix this problem? Do you believe that this is a distressing point?
So you're asking me?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
You see, as far as, political interference, I have a totally different view. I never faced any political interference in my life, because I know that, it's not that they never approached me, but I have been able to withstand pressures at every stage of my career. So I have a feeling that the so-called political interference is something that the officers themselves are inviting to themselves. It is not necessary that you have to do funny things for your masters if you have to break law in that process. I have a feeling if those who are doing this, they are doing an illegality, and this cannot be supported under any circumstances. As far as this particular case is concerned, I had decided not to look at this television news for the last few days. So I am not fully briefed about the latest.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll leave it at that.
But can I say that center has been taking away cases? This has happened in Elgar Parishad case also. They have taken control from Maharashtra government, and now they've taken control of this. I smack politics in it clearly.
Absolutely. It's not police investigation, it's political investigation.
Yeah.
But Faye,
yes. Do you believe that citizens can do something? As you know, this is an extreme case of political investigation, for all of the citizens who are watching, we want to be able to trust our police. And I believe that a safe society is when each of us can proudly walk into our police station for anything that we need, whether it is a complaint or information or anything. We should not be scared of talking to our police officers. Do you believe that there is anything that we can do in order to go from where we are right now to that point?
So I will give one concrete program which we can have to tackle this fear of police and to have some basic knowledge about policing. And that is, we should all over the country, in all the states, have internship with police stations. We should encourage youth to intern with police. I am not saying you intern for a year. I am saying you intern for a month. You understand what is an FIR, what is a cognizable case, what is bail, what is anticipatory bail, all over the country. And the Bureau of Police Research and Development, which Vipul sir has talked about, encourages this. We have had a seminar where during the internship period, one student got up and said, "Oh, I didn't know hacking is an offense. I do it so much out of sheer boredom." So knowledge about policing, basic policing through internship programs with the youth. Youth should demand it, police should execute it, and faculty, teachers, professors should encourage this. I feel that first step will later on build the better relationship, more understanding, and probably less political ownership and more citizens' ownership of police.
Yes. All right, we're going to leave it there, but this is effectively what it is, that we have to get to know our police, the ones who at least are serving in the nearest police station a little better, show an interest in who they are, what they're doing, and get to know them, show an interest in the transfer, show an interest in the merit of who the police commissioner is in your city. And as media, we should be writing more about the police, about the work that is being done, the transfers that are happening, and if there are problems, they should be highlighted as well, so that citizens can form better opinions. It's not just about chasing after one story, but actually tracking this on a daily and a weekly basis on the quality of life of the police, the quality of investigation, the kind of pressure that they get put under, and the political interference. It's only when the media, citizens, and everyone takes more of an interest that we'll be able to solve these problems. I want to thank my panelists for being kind enough to answer all of our questions and for giving us your time. And of course, this will be on the YouTube channel, so you can pass it on to others you believe will benefit from this information. We're here every week at this time for police dialogues to talk about the problems and define solutions and figure out how we can be part of the solution and not be part of the problem. Thanks for watching.